Love from the Depths. By Anyo. Exterior night. Somewhere in the ocean, on a medium-sized fishing boat, there were 5 men. Nicholas, a man between 30 and 35 years old, with short dark brown hair, brown eyes, and a short beard. Nicholas was the father raising a 7-year-old boy on his own, after the boy's mother died during childbirth. Paul, the captain of the boat, a man aged 37 to 40, with blonde hair and green eyes. James and Sam, 2 twin brothers with dark curly hair and brown eyes, aged 35 to 37. And finally, Rick, a man aged 50 to 55, with brown hair, green eyes, and an individualistic personality, someone who would do anything to save himself in difficult situations. After midnight, James and Sam were in the lower rooms, where they slept, as the fishing was done in shifts, both day and night. The only active people were Captain Paul, as well as the 2 fishermen, Nicholas and Rick. After the engines of the boat were turned off, the captain decided to rest as well, leaving only the 2 fishermen on deck. Nicholas and Rick began discussing various topics while fishing to keep their minds busy and avoid falling asleep. Nicholas, I wanted to ask you something. Rick, okay, let's hear it. Nicholas, do you really think it's true? Nicholas, what they say about mermaids? Rick, are you referring to their song? Nicholas, yes, some say it's so beautiful. Nicholas, that it makes you fall in love with them. Rick, actually, I've heard that their song, Rick, drives you crazy and makes you follow them. Rick, wherever they go, and then they can absorb your soul. Nicholas, really? That's pure madness. Rick, a few years ago, a cousin of mine, Rick, jumped into the water after hearing, Rick, the song of a mermaid, and since then, Rick, he's never been seen or found again. Nicholas, wow, that's terrifying and I'm sorry. Nicholas, for your loss. Rick, yeah, well, it's been a while, so I've moved on. Later, as they were fishing, a few mermaids gathered at the surface around the boat and started singing. For a moment, Nicholas wanted to listen to their song, curious about the effect it would have on him, but James shouted at him to stop listening and not to be seduced by them. Rick, Nick, can you hear me? Rick, Nick, cover your ears, man. Rick, Nick, think about your son. Nicholas, seemingly enchanted by the mermaid's song, with his gaze fixed on one of the mermaids in the water, barely snapped back to reality and covered his ears, though he kept staring at the mermaid who had captivated him with her song and beauty. The mermaid had long blonde hair, mesmerizing blue eyes, generous breasts, and a beautifully colored tail, starting with a turquoise shade at the hips, moving into a purple hue in the middle, and finally a glowing red at the tip of her tail. Rick, man, it was close. Rick, I thought I'd lost you too. Nicholas, I'm okay. Thanks a lot for your help. Rick, are you sure you're okay? Rick, it took you a while to react. Nicholas, yes, I'm fine. They didn't drive me crazy. Nicholas, it's just that their song is so beautiful. Nicholas, there's something enchanting about it. Nicholas, it feels like suddenly you detach from reality. Nicholas, and you end up in a place. I'm not sure how to explain. Rick, are you sure they didn't drive you mad? Nicholas, yes, I'm sure. They didn't drive me crazy. Then, both Rick and Nicholas laughed together. After 2 days, their ship arrives in port, and the fishermen and the captain go to a bar to have a beer after spending 1 day and night on the fishing boat. In the bar, the boys talk and share their experiences. Rick, I don't think I told you. Rick, but Nick, he's not really Nick anymore. Sam, what do you mean? Rick, well, now Nick is Nick, the enchanted one. Everyone starts laughing, and the conversation continues as Rick and Nicholas explain to the others what happened. Sometime later, the boys leave the bar and head home, bidding each other farewell, agreeing to meet again next week for another fishing trip. A few days later, the 5 reunite to go fishing again on their boat, and as before, Sam and his twin brother James fish during the day while Nicholas and Rick rest so they can stay awake at night. As evening falls, the 4 of them switch shifts, and Nicholas and Rick begin fishing. While they're fishing, Rick says to Nicholas, Rick, hey man, I hope you'll be more careful this time. Rick. In case the mermaids show up again. Rick. I'm not going to risk my life. Rick. To save you. Rick. If you lose your mind and jump into the water. Nicholas. Of course, that won't happen. Nicholas. You don't need to worry. After about 2 hours of fishing, Rick tells Nicholas he's going to go to his room because nature calls, and since he's going, he'll bring a beer back for Nicholas. He asks if Nicholas wants one. Rick. Nick. I'm going downstairs. Rick. Nature calls, and since I'm going. Rick. I'll bring a beer on my way back. Rick. Do you want one? Nicholas. Sure, thanks a lot. Right after Rick leaves, the mermaids appear, and Nicholas, bathed in the moonlight and the few lights on the boat, looks around for the mermaid that had enchanted him the last time. And just before the mermaids start singing, Nicholas saw her among the other mermaids, but close enough to the boat. Immediately after this, the mermaids began to sing, and Nicholas intended to cover his ears, but then he thought to himself, Nicholas, but what if Rick is wrong? Nicholas, what if their song doesn't actually drive you crazy? Nicholas, and besides, the feeling is so, Nicholas, pleasant and enchanting, it's hard to believe, Nicholas, that something like this could make someone go mad. Then, Nicholas removed his hands from his ears to listen to the mermaid's song, and he reached out his hand toward the mermaid who had enchanted him. To his surprise, the mermaid reached out her hand toward his, and their palms touched, which made Nicholas feel almost divine. Then Nicholas gestured for the mermaid to come aboard the boat and even spoke to her. Nicholas, come on, come up if you want. Nicholas, don't be afraid, you're so beautiful. Then, Nicholas spoke aloud to himself. Nicholas, what a fool I am. I don't even think I, Nicholas, understand what I'm saying. The mermaid giggled softly, and then said, Mermaid, you're not a fool and thank you. Nicholas, incredible, but how? Mermaid, how do I know your language? Mermaid, is that what you mean? Nicholas, yes, exactly, and why are you thanking me? Mermaid, it's a long story. Mermaid, but not long ago, the two worlds. Mermaid, your world and mine coexisted. Mermaid, the mermaids learned your language from you. Nicholas, from us. Mermaid, yes, from humans, from those on land. Mermaid, because some mermaids fall in love. Mermaid, with people from the land. Mermaid, in our world, there is a tradition. Mermaid, and it is said that the one who succeeds. Mermaid, to charm a landowner. Mermaid, and marry him. Mermaid, they will have a pure, happy, and rich life. As the mermaid spoke, Nicholas, enchanted by her beauty, couldn't help himself and kissed her passionately. Then, he gently pulls back and apologizes. Nicholas, please forgive me, you are so beautiful. Nicholas, and enchanting. Nicholas, I couldn't help myself. Mermaid, thank you again. Mermaid, and to answer your question, Mermaid, I thank you for the compliments. Mermaid, but also for letting me. Mermaid, come aboard this boat. Nicholas, of course, I'm happy to have you by my side. Before he could finish speaking, the mermaid kissed Nicholas, even more passionately than he had kissed her, and this caused him to have a slightly strange reaction. At that moment, Rick returned with the beers in one hand and a harpoon in the other, saying, Rick, while heading toward the deck, coming out of the interior of the boat. Rick, hey Nick, look what I found under the captain's bed. Before Rick could finish what he was saying, seeing the mermaid on top of Nicholas, kissing him while Nicholas seemed to be having a heart attack or something due to his strange reaction, Rick believed the mermaid was trying to absorb his soul. He dropped the beers from his hand and quickly raised the harpoon to aim at the mermaid. However, before Rick could shoot, the mermaid panicked and jumped into the water, and the harpoon struck Nicholas in the chest. A few moments later, Rick realized what had happened and rushed toward Nicholas, hoping he could help him. Rick, hey man, are you okay? Rick, I'm sorry. Rick, oh God, what have I done? Rick, come on, man, hang in there. Nicholas tries to say something, but he struggles due to the pain and the harpoon that pierced his left lung. Nicholas, Rick, The child, please. Rick. Hey, you'll be okay. Save your energy. Nicholas. The child, take care of him. Rick. Don't talk like that. Man, you'll be okay. Rick realizes that Nicholas won't survive and promises him that he will take care of his son. He then stands up, places his hands on his head, and runs his fingers through his hair, speaking to himself. Rick. What do I do now? Rick. I think the others still don't know anything. Rick. And anyway, we wouldn't make it to shore in time. Rick. It was an accident. The mermaids. Rick. The mermaids took your mind and you jumped. As Rick walks along the deck, he comes up with a plan while talking to himself. Rick. I'll throw you into the water and say that the mermaids took you. Rick cuts the rope between the harpoon and the weapon, then throws Nicholas into the water, who is still struggling to survive. In the distance, the mermaids watch the whole scene. Rick continues to plan what to do next, walking around the deck and speaking to himself. Rick. Okay, the blood. First I'll clean up the blood. Rick. Then, if anyone asks where Nick is. Rick. I'll say the mermaids took his mind for real. Rick. I tried to stop him. Rick. But before I could get to him. Rick. Nick jumped into the water. Meanwhile, the mermaid who had fallen in love with Nicholas takes him, and along with the other mermaids, they swim very quickly, heading toward the mermaid city located somewhere deep in the ocean. As the mermaids swim through the ocean, carrying Nicholas with them, the mermaid who cared for him occasionally kisses him, giving him oxygen in the hope that he will survive the journey. Soon, glowing lights of various colors are visible in the distance, appearing to come from an underwater city surrounded by a huge air bubble. After a short while, the mermaids swim around half of this bubble to reach the other side of the underwater city, then enter the city and head to a mermaid shaman. The shaman is a man, around 70 to 75 years old, with darker skin and brown hair, streaked in various colors. The shaman is covered in a strange armor made of bones, seaweed, and what appears to be precious stones from the ocean depths. On his chest, he has 2 bones resembling shoulder blades, but larger than those of an average human, and above his shoulders, he wears a kind of crown made from what seem to be large ribs of some creature. On the rest of his body, from the chest down, under the 2 shoulder blades, he had attached ribs that seemed to be held in place by threads made from braided seaweed, and all these bones were adorned in places with small precious ocean stones. As soon as the shaman saw the man, who appeared pale in the face with the harpoon still lodged in his chest, now on the verge of death, he realized their intention to save the man's life and spoke to the mermaids. Shaman, I understand you want to save his life. Shaman, but his only chance of survival. Shaman, if he survives the process. Shaman, is to make him one of us. The mermaid who had brought him there then spoke. Mermaid, anything, just please save him. Shaman, okay, but know that he will never. Shaman, be able to return home, to his world. Mermaid, please, save him. Shaman, okay, we don't have much time though. Shaman, I need 2 plants from you. Shaman, they are very rare. Shaman, but you can find them in the ocean. Shaman, the more you'd plant. Shaman, grows on the bones of dead whales. Shaman, it has translucent leaves that emit a subtle sound. Shaman, when touched, similar to a murmur of the dead. The mermaid then asks one of her sisters to search for this plant, while she herself will go in search of the second one. Shaman, and of course, Diao's Levi. Shaman, which can only be found at the edge. Shaman, of a deep chasm, and grows with the help of. Shaman, light produced by special jellyfish. Shaman, that illuminate the depths during mating season. Shaman, this flowering plant that seems to pulse. Shaman, like small hearts, symbolizing rebirth. Immediately, the mermaids set off in search of that plant. Meanwhile, in the city of the mermaids, the shaman removed the harpoon from the man's chest, and then from a transparent bowl, he took a purple jellyfish, which he placed on the open wound of the man who was barely breathing. Then the shaman said, Shaman, this will feed on the blood from your wound. Shaman, allowing you to breathe. Shaman, but it will slow the bleeding. Shaman, if you're lucky, there's a chance you might. Shaman, survived the transformation process. Meanwhile, somewhere deep in the ocean that night, a mermaid named Mira, between 27 to 30 years old, with long blonde hair, enchanting blue eyes, generous breasts, and a beautifully colored tail, starting with a greenish hue near her hips, fading to purple in the middle, and a glowing red at the tip, arrived at the edge of the chasm where the plant she was looking for should have been. However, there was no sign of the plant. She searched for a while, thinking, Mira, if I don't find it here, Mira, I'll have to go further. Mira, I don't have time to waste. Before giving up on her search and deciding to move on to the next chasm, Mira spotted the plant she was looking for. She hurriedly picked it and swam quickly toward the city of the mermaids, hoping her sister had already arrived and that they would succeed in saving the life of the man Mira had fallen in love with. When Mira arrived in the city of the mermaids, the shaman told her that her sister hadn't returned yet, but at least one of the 2 plants had been found. Now they had to wait, hoping her sister would return soon. Meanwhile, in another part of the ocean, Mermaid 2, Nina, a mermaid with purple hair, light blue eyes, and a beautiful face, between 25 to 29 years old, with a small mole on her right cheek below her eye, arrived in an area where the bones of a whale, long dead, were scattered. But when she tried to get closer, a gigantic octopus appeared, seemingly guarding the remains. Then the octopus spoke. Octopus, what do we have here? Octopus, did you get lost, perhaps? Octopus, or are you just looking for trouble, little one? Nina, I haven't gotten lost, and I'm not. Nina, looking for trouble, but I am here. Nina, on a life and death mission. Octopus, aha, I see you're looking for death. Nina, slightly irritated and knowing she didn't have time to waste, responded. Nina, please, let me pass. I don't have time. Octopus, oh, but how is that possible? Octopus, you had time to come all the way here. Octopus, but you don't have time for me? Nina, no, you misunderstood. That's not what I meant. Octopus, that's pure impudence. The octopus tried to strike Nina, but the mermaid dodged, and thus began a skirmish between the gigantic octopus and mermaid Nina in the ocean. Nina, swimming rapidly in an attempt to escape the octopus, says to the octopus, Nina, if I promise to leave, Nina, will you promise to leave me alone? Octopus, only if you get away from me. Octopus, in the next 10 minutes. Then Nina thinks, if I swim along the whale's bones, I might have a better chance of escaping, and I could also spot the plant I need, and I hope I can do it as quickly as possible. Then Nina begins to swim as fast as she can towards the whale bones, just as she had planned. It didn't take long until she saw the plant she had been searching for. She swam quickly to the whale's rib where the plant was growing, and in order to prevent the octopus from noticing her intention to take the plant, she staged an accident with the rib. In this accident, she grabbed the plant with her hand, then hid it in a small backpack she had with her, while appearing to fall toward the ocean floor. She then began to swim again, thinking, Nina, did it notice my move? Nina, I really hope it didn't catch on. Octopus, what's the matter, little one? Did the accident hurt? Nina, okay, so it didn't realize. Nina, now it's time to return to the city. Nina, I've got what I needed. Then Nina begins swimming rapidly back toward the city, and after a while, the octopus finally leaves her alone. Once in the city, Nina and Mira meet again. Nina hands the shaman the second plant needed to save Nicholas' life and aid in his transformation. The shaman then moves the jellyfish from the man's wound, mixes the 2 plants in a bowl, crushing them and chanting something. Afterward, he applies the plants to the man's wound and places the jellyfish over them. The shaman then lifts Nicholas in his arms and takes him to an underground cave. The walls of the cave are adorned with various glowing plants in fluorescent colors. Near one of the walls, there is a pool with pink liquid and yellow substance, also glowing, containing purple larvae swimming inside it. The shaman, carrying the man, submerges him into the substance and says, Shaman, you, siren who brought him. Mira, Mira, my name is Mira. Shaman, Irindis, that is my name. Irindis. Mira, please, bring me from above. Irindis, A jellyfish that will help him. Irindis. To breathe during the transformation process. Mira. Okay, of course, I'll be right back. Irindis. You know what I mean, right? Mira. Of course. Mira goes up to Irindis' house, finds the jellyfish, a transparent one with a slight orange hue, takes the container holding it, and quickly returns to the cave. She hands the jellyfish to the shaman. Irindis takes the jellyfish and places it on the man's face. The jellyfish immediately extends small tentacles into the man's nostrils. Then, Irindis fully submerges Nicholas into the viscous substance. Irindis. This is where his transformation process begins. Irindis. These are the last moments in which. Irindis. You can still think about whether you truly want. Irindis. To save his life, transforming him. Irindis. Thus, into one of us. Mira. As I said, yes. Irindis. Then let it be so. The next 12 hours. Irindis. Are decisive. Irindis. From here on, it no longer depends on me. Irindis. Whether he survives or not. Irindis. The transformation process. Irindis. Everything depends only on his will. Irindis. To live. Mira and Nina, simultaneously. Thank you so much. Irindis. You have no need to thank me. Irindis. A large part of the work. Irindis. Is owed to you. Meanwhile, Rick throws the weapon used for the harpoon into the water and cleans off the bloodstains, hoping no one will find out what happened. He then wakes up the captain to tell him his version of the story and to inform him that once they reach the shore, he intends to change professions, as he wants to stay far away from the world of the sirens and the sea. A few years later, meanwhile, Rick took Nicholas' son to raise him as his own and told him his version of the story about what happened to his father. Nicholas also taught the boy to never fall under the spell of the sirens' songs if he ever decided to follow his father's profession. From the day Nicholas died, Rick decided to quit fishing and work in construction. At the age of 17, the boy decided to follow the same profession as his father, and he made a plan to stay away from the sirens. He decided to train his mind to resist their songs. Every time he went fishing, he would take a pair of headphones with him, covering one ear with them, while with the other ear, he would listen to the siren songs for a few moments. When he felt himself taken by the waves, or enchanted by their song, he would cover both ears with the headphones, listening to his favorite music for a few moments, and then uncover the other ear, removing the headphones, repeating the process several times until the siren song stopped. After a year of repeating this process whenever he had the chance, he began to feel safe in the presence of the siren songs, which no longer affected or enchanted him like they used to. Exterior, daytime, somewhere on the edge of the ocean. Daniel, 18 years old, with brown hair and brown eyes, a rebellious yet devoted type, son of Nicholas, walks along the ocean shore near some rocks extending into the water, with headphones on, listening to music. He thinks, Daniel, I don't know where you are, Dad. Daniel, but wherever you are, I promise you, Daniel, I promise I will find out what happened. Daniel, and who took you away from me? Daniel, and they will regret it. Shortly after this, Daniel reaches the rocky area in the water and sees and hears a siren sitting on the rocks singing. To his surprise, even though he was used to their songs, the beauty of a siren and her song seemed to enchant him, as it was different from anything he had encountered before. Daniel, fascinated by the siren's beauty and seemingly drawn to her song, takes his headphones off to listen more closely to her enchanting song. He tries to approach the siren slowly, but when she sees him, she gets scared, jumps into the water, and disappears into the waves, moving away from the shore. The boy lingered on those rocks for a long time, watching the beautiful mermaid swim away. He was still captivated by her beauty and found himself pondering that moment, hoping perhaps to meet her again someday. A few days later, the boy went fishing on his boat again. As evening fell, the mermaids, curious and intrigued by the fact that the boy was no longer enchanted by their songs, gathered in greater numbers than ever around the boat and began to sing. The boy, now accustomed to their enchanting song but no longer affected by it, continued fishing, but he also watched each mermaid carefully, hoping to find the one who had enchanted him with her beauty and song on the beach. After a while, he saw her emerging from the water. It was her, and she began to sing. Her song was even more captivating than before, and the boy, abandoning his fishing, leaned over the side of the boat like his father and extended his hand towards her. Then he said, "Daniel, incredible! You're so beautiful! Daniel, and enchanting! And your song! Daniel, your song is extraordinary! Daniel, unlike anything I've ever heard! Daniel, and that's saying a lot! Daniel, don't be afraid. I know you understand." The mermaids in the water all looked at the mermaid who had managed to captivate the boy, but they did not look with envy or jealousy, but rather with joy for what she had managed to do, something none of them had been able to achieve. The mermaid Aria, a girl with remarkable green eyes, long brunette hair, beautifully defined curves, and a stunning tail, approached the boat. Her tail was intricately colored, glowing under the moonlight that reflected off the ocean waves. Starting from a turquoise hue near her hips, it transitioned into a soft mauve and ended in a golden-orange tint. The phosphorescent effect of her tail's colors was accentuated by the light of the moon, making her appearance even more enchanting. Arya swam closer to the boat and spoke softly. "Arya, I am Arya, and yes, I understand you. But how? Daniel, you want to ask how I know you can understand our language? Arya, yes, exactly. Daniel, I'm a fisherman, and besides the fact that, Daniel, people talk about you often, there are books, Daniel, that mention your kind. These books say, Daniel, that long ago, your world and the world, Daniel, of land-dwelling humans used to coexist in harmony. Arya, yes, that's true. Daniel, would you like to come aboard? Arya, I'd love to." Daniel reached out, taking Arya's hand, and helped her onto the boat under the watchful eyes of the other mermaids in the water. "Arya, thanks, and I'm sorry. Daniel, for what? Arya, for what happened on the beach. Arya, I thought I was alone. Arya, and no one sees or hears me. Daniel, don't worry. Daniel, I apologize if I scared you. Daniel, and I honestly really hope to see you again. Arya, yes. Daniel, yes, like I was saying. Daniel, you're special." Daniel didn't get to continue what he wanted to say because Arya kissed him. Daniel, surprised by her unexpected but pleasant kiss, said, "Daniel, wow, so this is what it feels like." Arya, slightly embarrassed by her actions. "Arya, I'm so sorry. I just couldn't help myself." Daniel, "No, please, don't apologize. Daniel, it seems that not only your song and Daniel, your appearance are enchanting. Daniel, even your kiss is just as Daniel, enchanting and pleasant." Arya, smiling and seeming to snuggle closer. "Arya, thank you so much." The two spent some time together on the boat, kissing and embracing, before Arya returned to the water, bidding farewell to Daniel in the hope that they would see each other again soon. After several more meetings while the boy was out fishing, their relationship grew stronger and stronger. Arya and Daniel fell deeply in love and began to trust each other completely. Exterior day. Daniel was walking along the beach again, listening to music, when he saw Arya on the shore. He went over to her, delighted to see her, and Arya said, "Arya, hey, I want to show you something." "Arya, do you trust me?" Daniel, "Yes, I trust you, my dear." "Arya, would you like to come with me into the water?" Daniel, "I would go anywhere with you." Daniel and Arya entered the water and began swimming on the surface until Arya said, "Arya, okay, we'll have to dive." "Arya, what I want to show you is somewhere." "Arya, further down." Daniel, "Okay, but I don't know how far." Daniel, "Can I hold my breath that long?" Arya, "Don't worry about that." Arya, "You'll have enough air." Arya, "Just trust me, please." Daniel, "Okay, I do, my dear." The two of them dived and began swimming together towards the depths, and when Daniel tried to surface, Arya realized his need for air and kissed him to give him oxygen. During the kiss, Daniel's eyes widen in surprise, and then he signals to Arya that everything is okay. They continue to swim, and soon they reach a round hole in the ocean floor, beautifully outlined and covered in colorful corals. They both swim through the hole and continue. A little later, Arya kisses Daniel again to give him more air, and then they continue to swim through this passage that now seems to curve towards the surface. It doesn't take long before they emerge in an underground cave, beautifully lit by the jellyfish swimming in the water and by what appeared to be fluorescent mushrooms growing on the cave walls. Once they reach the surface of the water in that cave, and being fascinated by the beauty of the cave where Arya had brought him, Daniel took Arya's hand, pulled her into his arms, and kissed her passionately. Arya opened her eyes wide, surprised by Daniel's kiss, then closed her eyes and continued to kiss him passionately for a while. After that passionate moment of kissing, Arya asked Daniel, "Arya, what was that?" "Arya, because I don't think you needed air." Daniel smiled softly and said, "Daniel, indeed I didn't need, Daniel, air. It was more like, Daniel, a kiss of love, Daniel, and as a thank you, Daniel, for bringing me here. Arya, I understand. I'm glad you like this place, Daniel. Yes, I like it very much. It's superb, Daniel. And you are wonderful in these lights, Daniel. And not only, Daniel, I love you, my dear Arya. Arya, wow, it's the first time, Arya, that I've heard you say that. Arya, but I love you too, darling." The two of them remained in that wonderful cave for some time, exploring the wonders of the cave and collecting pebbles of various colors and sizes, after which Arya helped Daniel get back to shore, then said goodbye again, hoping to meet soon. Exterior night. Somewhere in the ocean, Daniel goes fishing again and meets Arya, where he suggests that their next meeting be on the shore again because he wanted to take her to a special place. Daniel and Arya embrace on the boat, kiss passionately, then talk. "Daniel, my dear, I would like us to, Daniel, meet on the shore again next time. Daniel, I talked to a friend and I would like, Daniel, to show you a special place. Arya, okay, but your friend, Arya, does he know what I am? Daniel, yes, he does, don't worry, he is. Daniel, a very open-minded person. Daniel, and a trusted friend. Arya, okay, I'm glad to hear that. Arya, and I'm curious about that place." Daniel and Arya kiss passionately as they embrace, caress, and touch each other. Shortly after, Daniel and Arya jumped into the water together and shared an intimate moment away from the boat, after which Daniel returned to the ship and planned to go home the next day. A few days later, exterior day, somewhere on the beach, Daniel was waiting for Arya with an ATV. After a while, he saw her in the water, swimming towards the shore. Daniel got off the ATV and went to meet Arya, who seemed a little sad. As soon as they met, they kissed, and Daniel asked Arya what was wrong. "Daniel, hey, my love, what's wrong? Daniel, I thought you'd be happy to see me." "Arya, I am happy, my love." "Arya, it's just that I had a really lousy day." "Daniel, well, what happened?" "Arya, I'm sorry, I don't want to." "Arya, talk about it, and I don't want to." "Arya, ruin your day either." "Arya, I just want to enjoy. Arya, this moment. Arya, with you, and I'd like to. Arya, see where you want to go. Daniel, you won't ruin my day, my dear. Daniel, and besides, Daniel, your problems are my problems too. Daniel, but I'm sure you'll enjoy, Daniel, these moments. Daniel, and you'll feel better. Daniel, when you go home." Daniel and Arya got on the ATV and started a ride along the beach towards the city and then to the place where Daniel wanted to take Arya. They arrived at an old suspension bridge that had been modified by the city citizens and adorned with all kinds of plants, lights, and arches made with climbing plants. The bridge looked like something out of a fairy tale and was beautifully lit, and the height of the bridge allowed visitors to see a large part of the city and its beauty. The two of them spent their time walking on the beautiful bridge until dusk, and Daniel began to tell Arya a little about his past. "Daniel, my love, this bridge, Daniel, is a special place for me. Daniel, I was invited to help. Daniel, 2 years ago, and I participated. Daniel, in decorating it. Arya, it's really very beautiful. Arya, I'm glad you brought me here. Daniel, when I participated. Daniel, in decorating the bridge. Daniel, I was thinking about my father. Daniel. And also about my mother. Daniel. My mother died at birth. Daniel. And my father got lost at sea. Daniel. My adoptive father says that. Daniel. The sirens were the ones who. Daniel. Drove him mad, and then killed him. Arya listened attentively without saying a word, already knowing what it was about, and knowing the true story. Daniel. But I'm not convinced that. Daniel. That's the truth. Daniel. But whatever the truth may be. Daniel. This bridge is my favorite place. Daniel. It's the place where I look at the city. Daniel. And I think about my father. Daniel. As if he had gone somewhere in the city. Daniel. But he can come home anytime. Daniel. And when I look at the sky full of stars. Daniel. I think of Mom. Daniel. That she is somewhere among them. Daniel. And she is watching over me. Arya. I'm so sorry. Arya. For your loss, and I'm glad. Arya. That you shared all this with me. Arya. I'm sure that wherever they are. Arya. Your parents, you will see them again someday. Arya. And if you allow me. Arya. I would like to take you somewhere else. Arya. In the depths of the ocean. Arya. Because I would like to. Arya. Show you our city. Arya. Of the sirens, but also to. Arya. Meet someone I love. Daniel. Of course, my love, I would love that. After Daniel and Arya parted ways, Daniel called Rick to tell him that he had fallen in love with a mermaid, something Rick didn't know until now. Upon hearing this news, Rick panicked and tried to convince Daniel to end the relationship with the mermaid. Rick was afraid that Daniel's relationship with Arya could have helped Daniel discover the truth about what had really happened to his father. Daniel and Rick were talking on the phone while Daniel was returning home. Daniel. Hey Rick, I need to tell you something. Rick. Sure, I'm listening. What is it? Daniel. I think I've fallen in love. Rick. Wow, are you serious? I'm happy. Daniel. Yes, but don't rush, because. Daniel. After you hear what I have to say. Daniel. I'm not sure you'll be happy anymore. Rick, suspecting what it was about, began to panic and worry about what might happen. Rick. No. Please don't tell me. Rick. Don't even let me hear it. Rick. Don't you dare tell me. Rick. That she's a mermaid. Daniel. Yes, but listen to me. Rick. No, no, no. Rick starts to pace around the house, panicked, while talking on the phone with Daniel. Rick. Haven't you learned anything? Rick. Do you really want to have the same fate as your father? Daniel. But it's not like that at all. Daniel. It's not at all what you think. Daniel. Mermaids aren't evil. Daniel. I even read in a book. Rick. What did you read? Daniel. It said that, not long ago. Daniel. The world of mermaids in our world. Daniel. Lived in peace. Rick. What makes you think that? Rick. It really would have been like that? Rick. And even if it had been. Rick. What about your father? Rick. Nick and my cousin and others. Daniel. I don't know. I don't know what happened. Daniel. But she's different. Daniel. She's special. Daniel. I'm almost home. Daniel. If you want, we can talk when I get there. Rick. Okay, but I can't stay for long. Rick. Because I have to go. Rick. Come home and let's talk. When Daniel gets home, they start having a heated argument, after which Rick gets angry and slams the apartment door behind him. The next day, Daniel receives a call from a friend inviting him to a beach house party near the area where he first saw Arya. He goes to the party where there are many young people of various ages. Later that evening, before sunset, Daniel goes out onto the beach-facing terrace of the house and meets the boy who invited him to the party and who is also the party organizer. Christopher, a 20 to 25-year-old guy, 1.80 centimeters tall, with medium-length brown curly hair and brown eyes. Daniel and Christopher meet on the terrace and exchange a few words. Daniel. Hey Chris, cool party, bro. Daniel. Thanks a lot for the invite. Christopher. Hey man, thanks a lot. Christopher. I'm glad you came. Christopher. And that you're enjoying it, but where is? Daniel. Who? Christopher. Your girlfriend. Daniel. Oh, She hasn't arrived yet. Daniel. But I'm sure she'll be here. Daniel. Soon. Christopher. Okay, I hope I get to meet her too. Christopher didn't get to finish his sentence when Daniel saw Arya on the beach and told Christopher. Daniel. There she is. She arrived. Then Daniel goes down to the beach and goes to Arya. Christopher intends to go meet Arya and tells Daniel. Christopher. Can I come meet her too? Daniel. Sorry bro, maybe another time. Daniel. I forgot I promised her. Daniel. That I would go with her. Daniel. I'm sorry I promised that. Daniel. I'll introduce you to her soon. Then Daniel and Arya meet on the beach. They hug and kiss. And then Daniel says, Daniel. Shall we go, my love? Arya. Of course, but who was that? Arya. That guy. Daniel. A good friend. I'll introduce you. Daniel. Another time, if you want. Arya. Sure, okay, let's go. They held hands and then headed towards the ocean, after which they began to swim together. Just like last time, as they began to dive deeper, Arya kissed Daniel from time to time to give him oxygen. After swimming for a while, they began to approach the area where the underwater city was located, which as always was luminous and sublime, existing under that immense air bubble. Having gotten close enough, Daniel was amazed by the beauty of the city, beautifully lit, and with all sorts of buildings and towers as if straight out of a fairy tale. Daniel stopped swimming to admire the scenery, leaving Arya to swim on, unaware that he had stopped. Shortly after, Arya sensed that Daniel was no longer swimming beside her and turned back to Daniel, who didn't know that he had a shark behind him that was heading towards him. Once she reached Daniel, Arya kissed him, and just as the shark was about to attack Daniel, Arya, without breaking the kiss, did a complicated spin, holding Daniel in her arms and hitting the shark with her mermaid tail, which made the shark reconsider its decision. Then the two lovers continued swimming towards the underwater city. Once inside the city, Daniel and Arya talked. Daniel. Wow, first of all. Daniel. Thank you. Daniel. And secondly, Daniel. That was close. Arya. You're welcome, and yes, I almost. Arya. Lost you by being eaten. Daniel. I didn't know you could do that. Arya. I can do many things. Then Arya and Daniel smiled lightly and continued their journey through the mermaid city. After walking for a while, they reached a house in the city. Arya went inside and then invited Daniel too. Arya. Come on. I want you to meet someone. Arya. I want to introduce you to the best. Arya. Friend of my father. The two go somewhere in the basement of the house where a mermaid man is working on a machine and hasn't noticed that the two were behind him. Then Arya calls out to the man working on that machine. Arya. Hey, Nick. Arya. Nick, I want to introduce you. Arya. To someone. The man turns around slowly, and then we see Nicholas's face, now transformed into a mermaid. The end.